think you just had a little bit of a blip there, but now you're back. Cool.
There we go. I had a blip. You had a blip. Everybody had a blip. If we all had a blip together, it would be bliptastic. It's Graham Coath with another MyMusic. I'm going to be speaking to Rose any minute now. But first, let's have this wonderful video from Analog Trash. Please do support. Rose, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Graham?
I'm absolutely fantastic. Now, Rose, for you, because you probably don't know this, because you probably don't inhabit the land of LinkedIn. Is that fair to say? Or are you on LinkedIn?
It's fair to say I'm not. I've been meaning to get on there for years, but I have not yet. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, if you ever need help getting on there, please let me know, because that is where I normally live throughout most of my day.
Cool.
All right.
Good to know.
And one of the things that I do on LinkedIn every day, every morning, at about somewhere between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning, without fail, done it for 4 years now, every single day, is I do a poll. And my polls are slightly ski-whiffy, kind of slightly abstract. I don't necessarily come straight with my polls, as it were, but sometimes I do. And today, knowing that I had you on this podcast, I wanted to use the title of your album on the poll.
Cool.
Okay. So my poll starts with "A Place to Go When You Need to Hide." Okay. Which is the title of the album. And I was asking people, do you ever fully feel the need to hide? And then I asked, and this was the poll question, do you have a place where you go to hide? And then I asked people to comment on where their places were. How many people do you think, out of so far 68 people who have voted, how many people do you think have said yes, they do have a place to go and hide?
Oh, I think probably most of them said that they would want a place, but how many have a place? Maybe a little less. Would be my guess.
Well, 51% so far have said yes, they have a place to hide.
Okay.
No is 35%, and 13 decided it was a great question. But what's really interesting, and let's just go through some of these places together, right?
Yeah.
Because it may sort of spring out where the album came from a little bit as well. People have said Cornwall, which is what we were talking about just before we came on air, which is a lovely part of the country in the southwest. Someone said, I hide in my kitchen garden. It's my sanctuary where I can potter and clear my mind.
Yes, love that.
Somebody said, simply turning my mobile off for a day, or going scuba diving or surfing, especially at night, riding my motorbike. Yeah.
These are great.
My bedroom, which could go either way with that. I hide at the arcades. I'm doing something relaxing that gives me a break from my phone. You see, there's definitely a thing about putting your phone down here, isn't there?
Yeah.
A crash helmet. I love that. Can highly recommend it. Push it on and you focus on nothing else but the ride. Hit of adrenaline does you the world of good. Hide in my head with a good book and music. Yes.
Nice.
Go for short walks. Coffee helps. Anywhere with peace, quiet, and occasionally a one-man disco.
That's a great album title right there.
That is. You strike that down right now. A place called the Insomnia Cafe in Market Harbour. This is very specific, which I call my secret coffee shop when I really need a few moments to myself to decompress.
Oh.
And I could go on, but there we are. I just thought I'd share that with you.
That
What
is
a
so
wonderful.
cool. I love that. I love that. That's so awesome.
So where did the title come from?
Well, yeah, that's a big question. That's a great question. It's a great place to start. So, I wrapped up my last album, Grow, right as COVID, a year into COVID. And I was feeling a lot of burnout in a lot of areas of my life. I had just gone through a period of massive burnout in my career. I'm a veterinarian. And that had been building for years. And COVID just pushed me right over the edge. I had a little breakdown, left my job, was figuring things out. Obviously, COVID had burned out everybody. Here in the US, like we were seeing a massive uptick in real serious political issues and a lot of division between people, a lot of hate, a lot of racial crimes. We're seeing the war on Ukraine, a huge uptick in school shootings here in the US. I mean, things were kind of falling apart. And I thought, I'm losing my head. I struggle with anxiety and a little OCD. And so I was trying to take good care of myself. And I decidedly felt like I needed to go somewhere to hide. And so I thought, where would that be for me? And it was growing my vegetables and turning my phone off more and spending more time at home with my friends and living a little more intentionally. And I thought I was really making headway and I was starting to feel better. And right in my hiding place, I started having these weird health problems and was eventually dinged with a long-term post-infectious Lyme disease diagnosis. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, it really shattered my world because I had been living under this illusion that, it was more of a delusion that I'd find a hiding place. I was safe here. If I could just do these specific things, everything would be okay. And it hit me from inside. It still wasn't okay. Hiding at home wasn't enough. Being in my vegetable garden, being in a physical place wasn't enough. And so what I ended up learning over the course of the next year and a half, where I was writing these songs and thankfully in with a really good therapist, because it got a little dark. No one really knew what was wrong with me physically. It took a while to get the diagnosis. I had a failed surgery. And it just kind of kept getting worse and worse. And I had a bit of an existential meltdown. And what came out of it, though, was that the place that I really needed to go to hide was inside of myself. I think that, like a lot of people, I had views about the universe and the world that just were a little inaccurate, and everything fell apart around me, which was really scary. And I think I just needed to step inside of myself a little bit and reevaluate things and decide how I wanted to move through it. And so the place to go when I need to hide apparently is not just my vegetable garden or a beautiful beach, but it's actually inside of myself. And that's what the album's about.
So in other words, if you don't actually deal with it,
yes,
you're not actually getting away from it.
Yeah, and
Is
I
that fair to
thought I
say?
was it's totally fair. I thought I was dealing with it, but I wasn't going deep enough. Apparently, the depth that I had to go was deeper than my vegetable garden or hiking. It was like a lot of soulful overhaul, I think, but it had to happen, and I'm honestly glad it did, as awful as it was. It really changed my world a lot for the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like an incredibly cathartic experience then.
Yeah, I guess it
That
was.
whole period it was actually writing the album quite cathartic as well.
It really was, and what's incredible is I mean, not only was it following me through this whole experience. I mean, some journalist he called it a sonic journal, and that couldn't be a better term for it. Like, I was writing it as I was going through this, as things were getting worse and worse. But what was funny was, in the midst of it, at the worst parts, these hopeful songs were coming to me. And I was like, where the hell is this coming from? I mean, I'll take it at this point, but they were just these beautiful words that I found really soothing. And as it turned out, that is how things ended up in the end. And the last song or two were actually written kind of in the middle of it. It was kind of like a future self was like, hey, Rose, it's going to be okay. Like, this is how you're going to get through this. And I ended up using those songs at the end because that's actually how it played out. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's immensely powerful. Have you ever had that experience before when you were writing music, or is this the first time
It's funny. I actually have. I remember, oh my gosh, it was probably like 15 years ago now or something. It was just another, how like in life you go through these like highs and lows, right? That's also what the album was about, is how high and how low life can get and how hard it could be to hold. But About 15 years ago, it was another kind of rough patch. I was having different health problems and needed surgery and went through a bad breakup, and things were just rough. And I was just having the worst time ever. And in the middle of that, this super happy song popped into my head. It's the happiest song I've ever written. It's called The Summer Song. It's on my first album. I find it interesting somehow when I am in the worst place, this hopeful music or hopeful song or hopeful lyrics just seems to come out of nowhere. It's beautiful, and I've really learned to appreciate that.
Well, in terms of the music itself, this album it flows incredibly well.
Thank you.
From start to finish. Was it written in that order, or
It
was it?
was, yeah, it actually
Yeah,
was. Which, yeah, the only thing I think that wasn't exactly was the last song. That was written kind of in the worst of it, like we were saying. And the song "The Dark of Light," which is maybe my favorite song I've ever done. I actually wrote that in college like 20 years ago, but I think I'd been
right.
waiting for the right place to the right time in the right place. Like I needed some production skills before I was able to pull that song off. It's like 7/8 to 3/4, and all these different changes and stuff. But other than that, things were written and recorded pretty much in the exact order that they are on the album. It really is a story through and through.
That's why it has that incredible
Yeah.
flow to it.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's amazing. For anyone that hasn't listened to the album yet, it does. It flows. It ebbs as well, really beautifully, and stylistically from one type of music to another as well. When you were writing it, were you consciously listening to anything, or were you consciously not listening to anything? I'm quite interested in that.
That is an awesome question. And it's not, I used to think the answer was super weird, but the more independent artists I meet, the more I realize this answer is not so weird. I don't actually listen to music almost ever. I love silence. Like that's my biggest inspiration. If I'm like struggling with a song or being like, yo, I need a chorus for this, or I can't quite hear how I want these strings to work, like I'll actually just go for like a 10-mile hike and just be in total silence, and things just start to move in my head. So I was not really intentionally listening to anything, just because I normally don't. However, the exception is, so I do enjoy creating concept albums. This is my most concept album ever. It's a story. It flows linearly. It's and sometimes
Does it have that in the Does it have that in the line notes inside? Because
yeah,
it really should. If
it
it doesn't,
does.
it should. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
does.
put all
This
the
is my
lyrics
most
in.
conceptual album ever.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
I didn't quite put it that way, but yeah. I sometimes the reason those can be hard is if it's like, I kind of wanted like a little piece of this song in this other song, and how am I going to do that so that it flows, or, and so for inspiration with that, and to answer those questions, I would dig into other people's concept albums. Pink Floyd, I think, does it great. They're one of my favorites. So I was listening to The Final Cut, In the Wall, and Dark Side of the Moon to try to figure out how did they do it in smooth ways. I'm a big Dream Theater fan, some hardcore progressive rock, and they've had.
Are you?
Yeah, they're pretty cool, and
Yeah.
I was digging into them too.
But you gotta answer the question then. Mike Portnoy or post Mike Portnoy?
Portnoy,
Yeah.
just Portnoy.
Every way.
Oh my God, he's my
Every
favorite drummer
time.
of all time, and I'm so glad he's back with them. I was like, yeah, like nothing against their other drummer, he was great, but like Portnoy's the man. I actually met him twice, and he's super, super nice guy.
Did you?
Yeah, I
Wow.
met the whole band. It was baller. It was the greatest night.
Yeah. What's we got to digress for a minute. What's your favorite thing that he's done outside of Dream Theater?
I think I like Transatlantic a lot. That's kind of an older one.
Well, I'm going to say that as well because I'm a big Marillion fan, and of course,
yes,
the bass players from Marillion, and there you go. And
that's
Marillion
awesome.
were always really good at segueing from one song to another across an album as well. You see,
Rock on. I know of them. I don't know if I've listened to a lot, but I'll have to go check it out. Thanks for the tip.
You will certainly do. After this, we won't do it now, but after this, I'll give you some listening to go and do your homework with. But that's
Sweet.
fantastic. Yeah. So I mean, look, that's the one thing that prog does really well, really, really well, is that movement it's almost symphonic, isn't it? That kind of that symphonical type movement between pieces and that linking
Yes.
piece between pieces. But just in case anyone would be thinking, I'm listening to a prog album here, you're not in the realms of prog necessarily,
Right.
are you? No.
It's kind of light core. I think some people recognize there's some prog elements. Like The Dark of Light is probably the most proggy, but the reason I kind of moved away from prog rock is I feel like sometimes it's lacking in emotion, and I got bored with that. And so I want my stuff to be emotive, but also have kind of that prog edge. So it's there, but I think you have to dig, you know?
Yeah. But in terms of the grit that comes through sometimes, and the, you know, even some of the voice and whatever, you're up there with like bands like the Breeders and Kim Deal and people like
Sweet.
that as well. Yeah, yeah.
Thanks.
When you, I mean, the fact that you say you don't listen to music particularly, although you must have some reference points, do you ever
Core.
then find that a little bit weird sometimes when you then play your music to fans of yours and then they give you all sorts of reference points and you're like, yeah, no, never heard of it.
Well, the cool thing is I feel like when I do get reference points, when fans are like, "Oh, you sound like blah blah blah," it kind of makes sense because it's not intentional, but 99% of the time they'll be like, "You sound like the Cranberries," and I was like, "Cool!" Like I like them, but they were never my favorite band. So I obviously soaked up a lot of the '90s. I think it comes out just kind of naturally. Because I think Dolores O'Riordan had an incredible voice, and it's a tragedy that she's no longer here. But they're great, so I'm cool with that. That's fine. I think just what comes out comes out. It probably sounds like stuff that I do like, and there are bands that I love. Like I'm a big U2 fan. I think Achtung Baby is my favorite. I love the newer stuff by Silverchair. They moved out of grunge really fast and into some really sophisticated stuff. And I think Daniel Johns has an incredible voice. I love 60s rock, the psychedelic stuff, like all of it. So it's not that I don't like music. I love it. I just find that I don't listen to it as much as I do just like silence. So
Yeah, and it's difficult sometimes to, and this is going to sound odd, but it's difficult sometimes to find the space to create and the space to listen to music.
100%. And
Does that make sense to you?
yes, yes. You know, like when I left my job as a vet, I was supporting myself by doing music full time. And one of the things I was doing to make extra money is doing production work for other artists. So I produce most of my own stuff. I work with a producer named Jamie Hill, who's amazing. He kind of mentors me through it as I learn, but I am able to do my own. And I was doing a lot of production for other independents, which was great. And it was keeping me afloat financially. But I found that the more their songs were in my head, the less I heard my own. So my writing kind of tanked. It's hard to balance the two, for me at least. I know people that do it, and I wish I could, but it's like if I don't keep the pipe clean. I think Nick Cave one time did an amazing talk where he talked about your creative pipe, and it has to be open and clean for the songs and the inspiration to come through. And I think I found that to be 100% the case with me. And if I don't keep my pipe clean, I can't write. I don't hear the songs. There's nothing coming through. So I try to keep some space for myself, you know?
Yeah, I love the whole conversation about creativity and the
Yeah.
space and where it should come from. I mean, I've said several times on here that, you know, I write or create all day long, and you know, for me, I just have to find it in very small things as well, because a lot of the time, if you're actually sat creating, you're not necessarily out doing stuff, which
100%.
right. So it's the times that I am out, I'm really absorbing, and I just have to completely absorb. Like we went to, yeah, I was speaking to you about it before, but like we went to the beach at the weekend, and you know, if I take like an hour or two across along the beach, I don't really want to talk. You know, I
Yeah.
literally just want that to come in,
Yeah.
because that will see itself out at some point. Yeah. And
I completely
then
understand.
little things like when I go to the shop, I just like to really watch and observe people and stuff,
Yes.
you know, and just snippets of conversation can become really quite big. later on.
I'm gonna,
Because you
I'm gonna, I'm gonna guess that you're a fellow introvert. Is that correct?
yeah, I'd like to think that I'm a confident introvert. Yeah.
Yes. No, I understand exactly what you mean. Like, it sounds like you're sensitive to your surroundings and you can let those in to a point where they trigger some kind of inspiration. I completely understand exactly what you mean. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in fact, we did a whole podcast actually the other day on what it means to be an introvert. I'll send you the link to that as well because it's fascinating. And
Oh yeah, totally.
we had
Yeah.
an expert who is an expert in being an introvert on it, and we discussed the whole thing through, because I don't think a lot of people understand what it means.
Yes,
I think a
agreed.
lot of people think it means to be shy. That's not necessarily the case.
Right.
It's much more, and she was explaining, it's much more about an energy. It's much more about what you bring to a space.
Yes.
Fascinating.
Yes, I did. And I was just saying that, like, I know, like, I would love to hear it because a couple years ago, maybe 10, 15 at this point, I happened to pick up a book called Quiet. It was written by somebody named Susan something, but it rocked my world. I totally identified with it. It made me understand myself better. So I'd love to hear this podcast. It sounds amazing.
What I'd also love to know is, now that you've completed this album and you've faced your demons and you've kind of, put them to rest in this album, what's the creative space you're in now? What's the headspace you're in now? Where's the creativity taking you now?
It's a very good question. I feel like I wish I could just put my demons to bed and have them sleep, but I feel like most people, it's a constant maintenance sort of thing, but I am feeling really, really good for the time being. And the creative spark, it's been interesting. I am working on my next album already, which is sort of in the same, I get alt rocky vein, but in the weirdest way, I've been hearing and listening to a lot of like neoclassical piano and ambient stuff. And there's a part of me that really feels like that's something that I want to explore. I find it really peaceful. It just feels really good viscerally. So I think that, maybe within the next year or two, I might dip a toe in that and see what that does.
Yeah. Are we going to get like shades of Philip Glass and things like that? We're going to get like little.
I wish.
Like, we're going to get little repetitive, subtle piano loops coming in and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. I love Philip Glass. I do not play. I'm not a pianist. I barely play. I mean, the stuff on my albums, it takes me a while to figure out, and I play it, but I am not by any stretch a keys player. But I'm pushing the limits. But that's what keeps it interesting.
That would be good.
Yeah,
I could see actually with the sort of tonality of what you do. I could even see you sort of going a little bit down the lines of something a little bit more experimental as well. Like, do you ever listen to Penguin Cafe Orchestra?
No, but I think I would love them based on the name alone.
Yeah, well, there you go. They did a fantastic song once called "Telephone and a Rubber Band."
Okay.
Yeah, which literally sounds like it starts with and the element of that kind of Pink Floydy thing in there as well. Do you know, like at the beginning of Money, where you get the doom, and it's cash register, right? Yeah. So they've got this kind of quasi sort of chamber music type thing going on, but at the same time, they on this song they had like a telephone noise play and then a rubber band which kind of makes the bass line, and slowly but surely it evolves, and then you lose that, so you kind of know it's there still, but you kind of forget it's there at the same time.
Excellent. I'm into it. I gotta check that out.
Yeah, I could see you doing something like that. I think that could be quite, maybe playing with sounds a little bit more on the next album.
Exactly. I felt like on the last album there were these little pockets where I found myself really digging in. Like there's a little pocket right before the guitar solo at the end of The Devil That You Know, or the whole solo in The Dark of Light. It was this space, and I'm like, what the heck am I going to put here? So I put one small thing and then put another small thing, and then just ended up creating these weird little soundscapes in the middle of the songs, which I found really cool. And just being able to just do that in an album, I think would just be a blast. So it was neat to kind of accidentally step into something like that, creating the last album.
That sounds fantastic. I can't wait to hear that.
Thank you.
Last question for you today.
Yeah.
And then I shall let you go off into the evening, which is in terms of other types of art, because I sense you probably touch over into other kinds of art as well. Book at all at any stage, or do
Like,
we
have I
see?
written a book, or do I read books?
No, do we think that there could be a book in you at some stage, or some other form of artistic expression?
It's so interesting. It's funny. I guess it depends on how you explain or how you define artistic expression. I find growing vegetables or knitting equally as expressive as music. Maybe not as much, but sort of. I do like to write short stories. I have had the idea to write a book. I've been told I should write a book because apparently I'm funny to some people. But someday I think that would be great. I love the idea of writing. It's quiet. It's just you and a computer. It just seems like a really cool practice. So it would be great someday if I could get into that. But no, I haven't really officially done anything like that yet.
It sounds to me as though that you're quite an observer of people as well, and perhaps you should even like write a little script of your observations of people. That could be quite charming as well.
It might get me sued, but I'll keep that in mind.
Oh well, listen, getting sued these days is a great way to make money.
That's true.
Well, yeah, it is, absolutely. It's the fast track to it's the fast track to fame. Let's face it.
Can't beat the attention.
Rose, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and finding out a little bit more about you. Do come to the UK sometime, and I promise you that if you do, next time you come, the Southwest is the best part of the UK to go to. There will be other people watching this that will from the UK who will disagree with that, but that's fine. They can state their own case. But we'd love to see you by the sea.
Awesome. I would love that. Thank you.
Our fish and chips are to die for.
Oh, yes.
Right. Rose, before you leave us, just one last time, where's the best place for people to go and find out about your music so that they can connect with you in a meaningful way?
Awesome. I mean, I'm easily reachable through either Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Mastodon. I've got a Bandcamp page. They could find the music on any streaming platform, pretty standard: Spotify, iTunes, Apple, whatever. YouTube is also an option. But yeah, I mean, if anyone was looking to really reach out, they could hit me there, or my email is rosealaimomusic@gmail.com.
That's the way to do it, folks. Please do go and find Rose on all of those platforms. But something like Bandcamp's brilliant because you can actually follow. Rose will know that you're following. You can be part of the mailing list. There's lots of actual music you can pay for there, not just stream, which is a fantastic thing to do because it really supports artists, as I've told you millions of times. But you know that by now, folks. And a lot of the people that watch this actually do put their money where their mouth is and support artists, which is great. Yes, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you today. Thank you so much for coming on. We do wish you all the best in the rest of 2024 with your music. Please go and find a place to hide, folks, and may that place involve the music of Rose, who's been on today. Until next time, bye for now.